In the opening scene, we are introduced to a drug addict named Jake, who is in search of a lighter to ignite his cigar. When he is unable to locate it, he starts exploring other means for fire, but all of his attempts are futile. In a state of despair and frustration, he decides to visit the nearest convenience store, hoping to purchase a lighter. When he reaches there, he shockingly notices that everything is in disarray and that there are no other customers or employees present. However, Jake does not pay much attention to the chaos, as he is solely focused on obtaining a lighter. He eventually locates one and leaves the money on the counter before exiting the store. A drug addict would never have done that. As he walks back to his home, he begins to notice that the streets are barren and devoid of any human life. This causes him to feel bewildered and perplexed, as he is unable to comprehend how the world could be so empty. On the second day of this strange occurrence, Jake is wandering around when he stumbles upon a horrifying sight, a lifeless body of a woman lying under a bench. This freaks him out and he attempts to call 911 for help, but his efforts are in vain. The inability to reach emergency services only adds to Jake's growing sense of unease. Not long after, his worst fears are confirmed when he discovers yet another corpse. Worried, Jake rushes to his family house, only to discover his parents and sisters lying motionless on the bed. Damn. Full house. Overwhelmed by the devastation, Jake begins to question his own sanity and the reality of the situation. He is unsure if what he's experiencing is real or simply a hallucination brought on by his drug use. In an effort to snap out of it, he slaps himself repeatedly, hoping to wake up from the nightmare. It is at this moment that a 13-year-old smart boy named Sam approaches him. He reveals that the world has been struck by a mysterious sleep epidemic that causes people to die in their sleep. The boy warns Jake to stay awake, or else he'll end up like everyone else. "Are you a drug addict too, little boy?" says Jake. The scene then transitions to Jake and Sam, who are joined by two other survivors, Lily and Rachel. In order to remain awake, the four have resorted to using various drugs, as well as spending time in the swimming pool. In their conversations, they lament the fact that European countries have been more fortunate, as the epidemic struck in the morning there, allowing many to survive. Alcoholism is pretty rampant over there, though, so a lot of people probably slept in and got pwned anyway. However, they have no clear idea of when the epidemic will end or how they will manage to stay awake in the long term. On the third day, Jake and Sam are conversing when they hear Rachel's anguished cries for help. They rush to her side, only to find that Lily has fallen asleep and is unresponsive. In a frantic effort to save her, they administer a heavy dose of adrenaline, but it proves to be too late. Poor Lily has already passed away in her sleep. Panicked, Rachel becomes convinced that the drugs are no longer effective, fearing that they will all succumb to the epidemic soon. Despite Jake's attempts to calm her down, she storms off in the car, taking all the drugs and adrenaline with her. Jake and Sam are left with no choice but to pursue Rachel in another vehicle, knowing that their own doses of drugs are wearing off and they'll soon need more to stay awake. However, as they follow Rachel, Jake starts falling asleep, rendering him unable to drive. With no other option, Sam takes over the steering and musters the courage to drive a car for the first time.
"If Short Round can do it and win an Oscar, so can I."
In a desperate attempt to keep Jake awake, he stabs him in the leg with a screwdriver, causing him to scream in pain but also to remain conscious. After a bit of chasing, Sam is about to catch up to Rachel's car, but right then, a private jet appears out of nowhere, causing a minor accident. This allows Rachel to escape, but fortunately, no one seems to be injured. After the crash, Jake and Sam meet the pilot, Ellis, who has been searching for a way to escape the epidemic by flying to different cities. Ellis is a goddamn wild card. Upon Sam's request, Ellis supplies them with some adrenaline tablets, buying them some time to stay awake. Later on, the trio heads to a hospital where they find other survivors. They also meet two doctors named Allie and Sarah, who assist Jake in treating his wound and provide the group with a potent dose of adrenaline. During their conversation, Ellis reveals that the sleep epidemic occurred at different times in various cities, suggesting that the source of the outbreak lies somewhere between Houston and Denver. With this new information in hand, the five survivors decide to embark on a journey to find an answer to the so-called sleep epidemic. After a long and exhausting drive, the group finally reaches the city hospital, only to find it burnt down and abandoned. With no other options left, they decide to make their way to the next hospital, which is an hour away. However, Jake suggests taking a detour to the mortuary, located behind the police station. He hopes to find some useful information there that can help them in the long run. In the next scene, as the group enters the police station, they are taken aback by the sight of a wild party taking place amidst the chaos. It appears as if some people are trying to make the most of their limited time. Everyone knows when cops confiscate drugs, they keep them for themselves. The group disregards the Poporgy and heads to the medical room to search for information on the epidemic's progression and death timings. Meanwhile, Sarah expresses her desire to stay back and enjoy the party, as she believes that this may be her last chance to do so. At first, Allie tries to dissuade her, but ultimately agrees when Jake offers to look after Sarah. As the rest of the group sets off on their mission, Jake and Sarah start dancing together, momentarily forgetting the dire situation they are in. They're still screwed, though. In the medical room, Sam's technical expertise allows him to hack into the computer system, where they uncover 2 points in time indicating the occurrence of deaths. Allie then explains the concept of spatial mathematics, whereby the intersection of 2 reverse azimuths can lead to a final destination. Even though she totally made that word up, she is convinced that this destination is Dallas, and the group agrees to head there. Meanwhile, Jake's mind is plagued with visions of his deceased half-sister, Megan. He follows her, leaving Sarah behind, and pours his heart out to her about his anger towards his father. Jake holds his father responsible for his mother's ruin, claiming that he spent all of their money on his second wife, rather than providing child support for Jake and his mother. Jake believes that his mother was pushed too far by his father, ultimately leading her to commit the unthinkable. No, that downer though. Back at the party, Sarah begins to feel increasingly drowsy as the adrenaline in her system depletes. She desperately searches for Jake, but to no avail. As she becomes more and more worried, panic sets in. After a while, Jake snaps out of his hallucination and realizes that he needs to return to the party. But when he arrives, he finds that Sarah has already succumbed to her fatigue and has fallen asleep. Allie is devastated by this and blames Jake for his negligence. Alice also joins in her anger, agreeing that they can no longer trust Jake to be a reliable member of the group. Fortunately, Sam speaks up in Jake's defense and urges the others not to abandon him. He argues that everyone deserves a second chance and that they should not be too quick to judge Jake based on his recent mistakes. Plus, it was Sarah's dumbass idea to consume depressants while trying to stay awake anyway. After much deliberation, the group finally decides to continue their journey to Dallas, but now with only 4 members. Jake is grateful for Sam's support and vows to make it up to the group by being more responsible in the future. On their way, their car suddenly picks up a radio signal. A woman's voice can be heard, urging people to go to Austin, where she claims that there is a cure for their current predicament. Allie recognizes the voice and quickly decides that they should change their destination to Austin. However, Alice isn't convinced and refuses to change their plans. This prompts Allie to decide to go alone. As they are about to part ways, Jake and Sam decide to accompany Allie, as they feel indebted to her for her loss. Before departing, Alice gives Allie a device that can track his location if she is within 100 miles of him. The group then sets off towards Austin, unsure of what they will find there, aside from some pretty damn good barbecue, that is. It's the 5th day now, and the trio consisting of Jake, Sam, and Allie are making their way to Austin. However, an unexpected and terrifying incident occurs when a lifeless body falls on top of their vehicle from an overpass, causing the car to lose control and collide with a tree. This collision causes Allie to hit her head and fall unconscious. Panicked, the boys frantically start looking for a way to revive her. Thankfully, Sam finds a bottle of water and splashes it on Allie's face, causing her to regain consciousness. They then temporarily bandage her wound to prevent the loss of blood. However, with their car now severely damaged, they have no choice but to continue their journey on foot. After miles of walking, the trio eventually reach South Austin, where they come across a group of Christian people who are in the process of honoring their dead. Allie, who is extremely exhausted, collapses on the ground, causing Jake and Sam to become very concerned. Fortunately, the Christian people spot her and immediately rush her to their parish. There, they give her a fetid drink called Salud, which manages to revive her. After this, Father Julio, who is the leader of the community, introduces himself to the trio and tells them that they are welcome to stay as long as they need to. While Allie takes some much-needed rest, Julio takes Sam outside and introduces him to some children his age. One of them is Carmen, who shows him around and eventually leads him to an old blind man named Eduardo and his loyal companion, a dog named Bullet. Sam is amazed at how the dog has managed to survive in the harsh conditions. It's simple, pups don't rest until we do. As Bullet barks at the arrival of outsiders, Eduardo instructs the kids to return to their parish for safety. However, before they can make it back, a disturbed-looking man covered in blood suddenly attacks Carmen, stabbing her arm brutally. But before he can harm her anymore, Father Julio and his group rush to their aid, causing the disturbed man to flee. It is later revealed that the man is suffering from severe sleep deprivation, so he has resorted to self-harm in order to stay awake. This lack of sleep has caused a significant disturbance to his mental health, resulting in his aggressive behavior towards others. That is obviously a Terrible excuse. Meanwhile, Carmen is rushed to the parish, where everyone requests Allie to help her. The latter, being a radiologist, feels hesitant to perform surgery, as she is not a trained surgeon. However, given the dire circumstances, she decides to go ahead and gather the necessary supplies to perform the surgery on Carmen. As the operation begins, Sam is tasked to keep Allie awake by engaging her in a conversation. Meanwhile, Jake decides to take matters into his own hands and goes in search of the disturbed man who has already murdered another member of the parish. After the successful surgery on Carmen, the group is relieved, but their respite is short-lived when the power supply suddenly goes out in the parish. Believing it to be the generator, Julio heads to investigate, but he finds blood instead, indicating that something is amiss. Suddenly, the disturbed man reappears and attacks Julio. Before anyone can react, the man enters the room where Allie is curing Carmen, posing a serious threat. Luckily, Jake arrives in the nick of time and subdues the attacker, killing him in the process. Finally, the intense situation calms down as the danger ends and Allie is able to save Carmen. In the final scene, we see the group, who decide that it's time for them to leave and continue their search for answers. They depart in Julio's car, promising to come back once they have found the solution to the ongoing epidemic. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.